Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our second webinar in our Wholesaler Toolkit series. This webinar series is focused on wholesalers and new and existing features in YCharts that are central to the distribution business. At YCharts, we're constantly developing our platform by adding new tools, features, and data designed to help you win more AUM. We've heard over the years that at times it's difficult to keep pace with all the new items that we're adding to our platform. So our goal here today is to not only refresh your memory on existing workflows, but also to narrow our focus on the most important tools or use cases to the sales process for distribution teams. We are going to cover these tools and workflows in detail here today so that you can leverage them in your conversations with your clients. Keep in mind that questions will be answered at the end of our webinar. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to use our chat feature within the Zoom module, and they will be answered during our Q&A session. And if we can't get to any questions, we will follow up with you after the webinar directly. Also, a recording of the webinar will be sent out to all registrants after we conclude. So if you do need to hop off for any reason, or if you'd like to reference this webinar after it airs, that recording will be sent to you in your inbox. So please keep an eye out for that. For our agenda today, we'll first give a quick overview of YCharts for those who need a refresh on our platform, and then we'll jump into our existing and new product releases. These new and existing product releases will help you craft compelling fund narratives before, during, and after advisor meetings and conversations. And then finally, as previously mentioned, we'll go ahead and wrap up with that Q&A session. So YCharts for asset managers. How do we help out asset managers on distribution teams? YCharts is really a one-stop shop for everything you might need to be successful at the point of sale. We provide you with the data, facts, visuals, and more that you need to overcome every objection in a meeting on the fly. I'm sure we all know that client conversations are quite dynamic, and YCharts offers a dynamic solution right at your fingertips. So when you are sitting across the desk from an advisor, it's not so much a matter of, hey, let me get back to you with an explanation, but instead, let me pull up the information that you need right now, and you're then leaving that meeting without having any unanswered questions. From comparisons on the fly and generating reports in seconds to creating compelling visuals that help better communicate your sales story, we're helping you shorten the sales cycle by equipping you with all of the ammunition you need in the moment. When it comes to crafting compelling fund narratives, there's certainly a lot more available in YCharts than what we can cover in our allotted time here today, as I'm sure you can imagine. So with that being said, we are going to focus on a few tried and true tools that folks find success with in the industry, as well as two new tools recently released that have the potential to add immense value to your narratives. First, we are going to take a look at the fund screener, and we'll showcase how you can use this function to gain a better understanding of competitive landscapes. Next, we'll focus on how you can upload an advisor's portfolio into YCharts in order to identify replacement opportunities. We'll also showcase our new portfolio optimizer, which may save you time analyzing a current or a proposed advisor model. Finally, we'll take a look at our new scenarios tool, which allows you to showcase hypothetical performance of a fund or portfolio against a selection of securities. With that being said, let me go ahead and jump into YCharts and we can get started. All right, so for this first workflow, as mentioned, we are going to be within the fund screener. Now, as a side note for those longtime YCharts users out here today, you may notice that our toolbar dropdown, as seen on my screen, is looking slightly different. Not to worry, you still have full access to all of the tools and features that you're familiar with, as well as some new additions. We just reorganized this for your own ease of access as we continue to add different tools to our offerings. So again, for this first portion of our presentation today, we're going to click into Fund Screener. Also, feel free to follow along. If you've got another screen up in front of you, please feel free to log into YCharts and follow along as we go through this workflow. For those of you unfamiliar with our Fund Screener tool, I'll give you a quick voiceover on how this works. The main benefit behind Fund Screener is you have the ability to filter down our entire fund universe. So you can see here the selection that I have highlighted. We're adding our entire fund universe. So that's about 78,000 some odd results. Certainly quite a large universe to work with. For that reason, we're going to want to modify that universe down. I actually have a fund screen built out that I'd love to share with you. So let me go ahead and open that up right now. And in this example, we are looking at the intermediate core plus bond category. And the goal here is to identify viable replacement opportunities. So let's go ahead and take a step back and I'll walk you through exactly how we built out this fund screen. Again, we're starting with our entire fund universe. And you can see below that we have 3 additional selections. So we're filtering to only look at that US fund category, intermediate core plus bonds. Then we are looking only at mutual funds. And finally, we're filtering by a specific brokerage availability or brokerage platform. So in this case, we're looking only for those intermediate core plus bonds, mutual funds available within Morgan Stanley Select UMA. You might be wondering at this point, well, this is great, Nicole, but how did I go ahead and set this up? So if you do want to filter our universe, please click into Modify in that upper left-hand corner. This pop-up window will appear, and we are going to be giving you all the different criteria on the left-hand side of this pop-up window that you can filter by. So going back to that first selection that I made here, looking at a specific fund type, we're going to be in types here. You'll see if I expand these drop downs, we can select ETFs, mutual funds, SMAs, whatever you may want to select here to filter by. Category name is also very popular. So we've got all of these US fund categories loaded into the system for you to select from. So please do keep that in mind. We can find that intermediate core plus bonds category right here. We also have that brokerage availability filter that I mentioned. So in this case, if we were hoping to replicate what I inputted into this fund screen, again, Morgan Stanley, I can go ahead and search for that platform or that list, and I can then select that specific list that I'm looking for. There are some additional categories that we can screen by. So you may have seen share class as an option here. This is a popular option if you do have a certain share class in mind that you're focused on, and you can certainly make that selection here. Fund family is also popular, so feel free to search for whatever fund family you might be interested in taking a look at. Let me go ahead and close out of this modify section. So again, we've got 46 results with all of the criteria that we've inputted. Now, if I scroll down, you'll see we've also added what we call metric filters. Metric filters are yet another way for us to continue to get a little bit more specific in the resulting funds that we're looking at. In this case, you can see I've set up 2 filters. And what we're doing here is we're finding funds that have a certain 5-year category rank and 1-year category rank. And because we're looking for replacement opportunities here, we are screening for funds that have a category rank greater than 25. Just to show you how we set that up, if I click into Add Filter, you'll notice this new pop-up window appears. All of our filters are metric based. So we have the option to use a range, an equation, a percentile, or even a ranking. In this case, we flipped our choice over to equation. And the first step here is to simply start typing in that metric that you'd like to build the equation off of. In this case, let's do a 10-year category rank. So we've got that metric here. I can give that a click to select it. At this point, you can certainly change your operator. For our purposes, again, I will leave this on greater than, and then we can enter in that numeric value that we'd like to use. Once I click submit, you'll see that filter has been updated, and we've gone from 29 results to 26 results and now to 15 results, given how we've built the logic out here in this screener. Let me go ahead and remove that so we can take a look at the original table that we had set up. So as I scroll down here, you can see we do have some additional metric columns loaded in. So we not only have the 3-year ranks and the 5-year ranks, but we also have additional information like risk information. We've got some yields in here, as well as specific returns. If I click into any of these column headers, I can sort from greatest to least or the other way around. Let's go ahead and do that now. I'll give that one more click to flip it around the other way. And we can take a look and see, well, out of this category, what were the funds that were ranked the highest, right, in these different time frames. So we can see who's outperforming who. We can gain some competitive intelligence in this universe, and we can also identify replacement opportunities as we come across them in advisor conversations. Please do keep in mind that anything you build out in the fund screener, you can always save down and you can always share with your colleagues. If I were to click into that title here in the upper left-hand corner, you can certainly save this down to your account. I always like to think of anything I build out in YCharts as a template. So if I were to save this down, maybe tomorrow I come into the fund screener and instead of looking at intermediate core plus bonds, I want to look at high yield muni. I can go ahead and quickly open this up. I don't lose any of my work, and I can edit that specific criteria. So just another quick tip that might save you some time down the road. If you are interested, we can also export this data to Excel. Just keep that in mind as an option. Finally, don't forget that you can also set alerts for this fund screener. So if we activate alerts here, you'll get a notification that it was activated. You will be notified whenever a fund either enters or leaves this list. So you can keep tabs on what's moving. And we can also save this as a watch list. So lower right-hand corner where my cursor is hovered, if I were to click Save as Watch List, I could title that. And once I save that down, we're going to get a notification that the screen was saved. I can go ahead and add this into my dashboard if you'd like to take a look at this list and this data analysis on a daily basis as soon as you do log into your YCharts account. All right, at this point, we are going to move on, and I am going to navigate over to our portfolio tool. Let me go ahead and load our main model portfolio page. For those of you in the audience here today who aren't super familiar with model portfolios, please keep in mind you do have the ability to load in an advisor's current model. Typically, the use case here looks like you might duplicate that model, create a proposed model, and then show some comparisons and analysis. So we'll get into the weeds here in just a second. You'll notice I do have 2 portfolios already built out for us here today that we can take a look at. If you are starting totally from scratch, you can always go into Create New in the upper right-hand corner. And the option you'll want to select is the blank model portfolio. Blank model portfolio is going to allow you to upload the advisor's current holdings matrix. We do also have a dynamic model portfolio. Dynamic models allows you to upload historic changes to holdings or weights in a portfolio. So typically I do see folks leveraging that blank model portfolio, in this use case a little bit more than the dynamic model. So let's go ahead and click into this Joe Advisor current model here that we see. And I'm just going to click into that pencil icon here to pull up the editor window. And we'll take a look and see exactly how I set this up. All right, so upper left-hand corner, you'll always want to title that model portfolio. The description field is optional. This is only for your organization. If you'd like to add a brief description to keep your list of portfolios straight on your end. You can set an advisory fee if you'd like, so please keep that in mind. Just go ahead and select that frequency here, and then you'll see you can add in that fee where my cursor is hovered. Finally, you can change the rebalance frequency. So we have this portfolio set to a quarterly rebalance. Of course, you can always change this to monthly, annually, or never. You can also select the benchmark that you'd like to use. So right now we've got the benchmark set to S&P 500 total return. You will have full access to our entire index library. So you can see if I search for an index, I'll get a list of options. I can just plug in that index I'd like to use. You can also use a blended benchmark. So please keep that in mind. We've got a variety of blended benchmarks that are public portfolios that are in each of your accounts. All right, and then in terms of actually adding in the holdings, if I click into edit items, you'll see we're looking at a window now where we can type in that security name or the ticker. So you can enter these holdings in one by one manually. I'll give you an example here. If I type in IJH for our first holding, this will appear. I can give it a click and we're going to have that loaded right in. And then on the right-hand side, you can see we can enter in those weights. Now, if you are working with dollars or shares, keep in mind under data input here, we can certainly switch that over and your input will change here as well. Once we are all set, I can go ahead and click update. Those changes will be locked into place. And the last step here is to click save. And that model should begin calculation. Once it does, you'll be taken back over to the main model portfolio page. Once you do build out that portfolio, there are a few steps we can take. First of all, you can certainly click into that portfolio. So if I give this portfolio a click, we're going to be taken over to this portfolio's quote page. Now, for those of you who actively search for mutual funds and ETFs and YCharts, this quote page should look very familiar to you. All of our portfolios act as any other security would in YCharts. So this means you can chart a portfolio for a nice side-by-side comparison. You can run a report on it. You can also input it into a scatter plot. So anything that you might do with a mutual fund or an ETF, you can certainly do with a portfolio as well to really create those great visuals and comparisons. For our purposes here today, I'm actually going to take you over into comp tables. And what we're going to do here is we're going to look for replacement opportunities within a portfolio. So this is another route that you can take. If I go into comp tables here from our tools menu, we will be able to pull in those portfolio holdings. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with comp tables, this is a great tool for quick metric analysis for a selection of securities. You can certainly type in the securities that you'd like to see here in the securities and list type box, but if you'd like to save yourself some time, which I recommend, we can click into this list icon here, and we're just going to toggle over to My Lists. This pulls up our suite of tools, and we'll click into My Model Portfolio Holdings. And as you can see here, I can select that portfolio that we'd like to take a look at. So in this case, it's that Advisor Current Model. Once I click submit, we are going to be looking at all of those 11 holdings. And I can get going by starting to add in those metrics that I'd like to use while I identify replacement opportunities. So if I click into browse here, the first thing that I typically do in this case is add in those category ranks. So let's do a year-to-date category rank. Once I select this metric, I'm going to be taken over to exactly where that metric is stored. So this can also save you a little bit of time, right? Because I can multi-select these different metrics at one time instead of entering them in individually. All right, so I've got those rankings inputted at this time. I can scroll down and just really quickly and easily, sort by these column headers and take a look at this portfolio and see well, exactly how each of these holdings stack up and what a good replacement opportunity might be. In this case, my attention would immediately go to this Western Asset Core Plus bond fund, and maybe we look at that as a replacement opportunity here. At this point, I'm going to return back into model portfolios. And typically at this point, what I would do is I would duplicate the advisor's current model. So let's take a look here. This is the current model on my screen. You'll notice we have a more options dropdown on the right-hand side of my screen, and I can go ahead and duplicate that portfolio. Once I click into duplicate, what that is going to do is it'll take me back into the editor window, and let's go ahead and do that right now. So we've already got this proposed model here. I'm just going to click edit, and duplication will take us into this window. We're going to be able to edit the items, so everything will be the same, and we can make any type of replacement that we'd like to execute at this time. So a lot of times folks will swap out one of the holdings with one of their own strategies. Maybe they would create a blended strategy, change the allocations a little bit. So this is a great place to do that. You can see I switched out that Western Asset Fund with this Lord Abbett Core Plus Bond Fund. All right, so at this point, if I go back over to View All, we can, of course, click into that proposed portfolio. And we can dig into this proposed portfolio bit. But what might be even more helpful at this point is just to simply run comparisons on that current versus proposed model. So again, as I mentioned before, you've got a couple different options. Of course, if you love using our fundamental chart tool, you can easily go into the fundamental chart tab and you can add in the current model just to do a quick comparison here, right? And we can take a look at that outperformance. We can overlay economic data, whatever you might want to do. So that's one option we have. Also, just really quickly here, do keep in mind that you can run a report on any given model portfolio. So if we do go into reports, you'll see that we have all the options. My list may look a little bit different than what you see on your end, but you should see comparison reports, overview reports, multi-comp reports, and you can run a nice side-by-side client-facing comparison for those two models. At this point, we are going to move into a very, very new tool. We just released this a few days ago, and this would be the Portfolio Optimizer. Let me go ahead and click into that for you here. And I'm just going to go ahead and open up a saved optimized portfolio. All right, so once I open this up, or once you input a portfolio initially, as you can see here, I've got the advisor current model already inputted. You're going to find a pop-up window, as you can see on my screen, where we get all of those holdings on the left-hand side. We also have the target weight that we've assigned those holdings. On the right-hand side, you can see we have a minimum weight and a maximum weight column. These are the restrictions that you're applying to our optimizer tool. So you can say what minimum value and maximum value, or what range you'd like to have for each of these holdings in terms of weighting. Once we're done there, we can go ahead and click submit. And also keep in mind that you will have to enter in the time frame. So you can go back all the way to the portfolio's inception if you'd like, or you can cherry pick a time frame that makes sense to you. In this case, I already have that appropriate date range going back to inception. And finally, before I hit calculate, you'll see we have a few strategies that is going to determine what we're optimizing. So what I have this set on right now is I want to minimize standard deviation for this portfolio. You can certainly select any of these other options, whether that's a target return value, maximizing Sharpe ratio, or entering a target standard deviation value. For our purposes here today, I'll leave it on minimize standard deviation. And once I am all set, I'm going to click calculate. And in just a few seconds, we'll see a few really compelling visuals below. We are going to give you an efficient frontier and portfolio summary. So this right-hand portfolio summary section is going to indicate to us what those changes were that our optimizer tool made to your allocations to accomplish the directive that was selected, in this case, minimizing standard deviation. We're going to give you some stats at the very top: expected return, standard deviation, and Sharpe ratio. And as I scroll down, we also get some additional visuals such as portfolio growth, both the provided portfolio and the optimized portfolio. Finally, we're going to give you some portfolio performance summary stats, again, looking at both the provided and optimized portfolio, as well as allocation data at the very bottom. So hopefully this might save you some time, as you dig into advisor models and create presentations on the same. If you're happy with this modified and optimized portfolio, you can also export this model as a model portfolio. So it saves you the time from having to reference this list of holdings and weights and then go back and manually create this. So if I were to click export as model portfolio, we are then taken over to our main model portfolio tool. And you can see we've got optimized in the name, just so we can tell exactly what portfolio we're looking at. And then we've got all those adjusted weightings below for each of our holdings. Finally, we do have a new tool called scenarios. So still focused on portfolios, but we can also apply funds to scenarios. For some background, scenarios is our hypothetical tool. Let me go ahead and leave this page so I can give you a look at the scenarios tool. And in scenarios, we can do a number of different things. We can input a fund or portfolio to run the scenario on. We can compare that fund with the scenario applied to either a benchmark, a comparable fund, a portfolio, or another saved scenario. Let me go ahead and open up a saved scenario for the sake of our time here that I can showcase. All right, so here we have a saved scenario with all of our settings. I am going to go ahead and toss in a security here so you can see the output on the right-hand side of my screen. So we have this Lord Abbett Core Plus Bond Fund. We're comparing it to the Western Asset Core Plus Bond Fund. Start date and end date, you have full control over what you input here. I chose to input the inception date for this fund. And then for the end date, just go ahead and choose yesterday's close or something similar. You can also indicate what your initial investment value is. You can certainly modify that. And then right below, you'll see for this scenario, if I click the pencil icon, we do have the option to indicate whether we'd like to make a contribution to this fund or withdrawal. We can set the frequency of that contribution or withdrawal. And we can also indicate the time frame. So while you are more than able to use the time range from above, in this case from inception, you can also get creative with your time ranges and set that contribution or withdrawal frequency to whatever makes sense in your case. Let me go ahead and update that, and we can go ahead and calculate this scenario. So again, in this scenario, we are going to be looking at this mutual fund with a contribution of $20,000 on a quarterly basis since inception of that fund. At the very top of the screen here, we're going to find a couple different things. So this purple line here is the Lord Abbett Core Plus Bond Fund. Right below there in the blue, we have the net contributions and withdrawals. And below that, we have our comparable security. The green line is going to show you the base case for that fund as well, the primary security in this hypothetical report. Moving down here, you can see we also give you a few different ways to view the data. So looking at this bar chart, we're going to show you the net contributions and withdrawals. And we can change that over to a quarterly basis, whatever makes sense. And finally, we will wrap up by giving you that really comprehensive contributions or withdrawals table. In this case, we only had a contribution, so this is what we're seeing. We're going to give you the starting value, net contributions, the end value, as well as your total return with and without those net contributions. And you can find totals at the very bottom for this hypothetical. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, this is great. I'd love to use this during meetings, but how do I export this? How do I get a nice PDF report? Super easy to do so. If I click into export, you'll see I can download this as a PDF report. And it's just going to take a few seconds to download to my computer. You may have to reduce the number of characters here, as you can see on my screen, but we can export that to a PDF document quite easily. And I can go ahead and pop that open and give you a look. All right, so here we are taking a look at that same scenario report that we saw, and we are able to flip through all of these different visuals. There's one more very cool thing that we can do here in scenarios that I think a lot of folks on the call here today will appreciate. Now, this scenario here is just showing us historic scenario to yesterday's close. If I wanted to show a forward-looking, more hypothetical returns, I can do that now in scenarios, which I find very useful. So if I click open here, I have another example already built out for you. And we are going to be looking at our hypothetical performance sample here using a fund. All right, and let me just go ahead and calculate this. All of the other settings here remain the same to the first scenario that we looked at, with the exception of we simply pulled out that end date. As you can see right here, we pulled out the end date to 2029 instead of keeping it on yesterday's close. This output looks a little bit different as well. As you can see, we're going to give you that hypothetical performance all the way out to 2029. So certainly a nice visual here if you would like to show hypothetical returns going out maybe 10, 20 years in the future. And do keep in mind, while we only do have that one scenario inputted right now, you can add as many scenarios as you'd like, depending on what you're trying to showcase. All right, so you can certainly export this as well. Keep that in mind. And finally, do feel free to save down these scenarios. Could save you a lot of time when you're looking to make tweaks to any of these scenarios, or change the fund. So please keep that nice functionality in mind here. All right, let me go ahead and just move everything back over to our presentation here. Again, if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. If you go on to YCharts, there is a button at the very top of the screen titled Contact Us. You'll be able to find my contact information, including my email, my direct line, as well as my meeting link. So I'd love to connect with all of you if there's anything else that you'd like to review down the road. And thanks again for joining us today. Have a great day.